Hello, Simon again. This is episode 4 of That Product Thing. Today I'm going to talk about a subject that's close to my heart, close to many other people's hearts. Designers are sensitive souls, we're easily offended, and there are things that you can say to a designer that'll demotivate them, make them hate you, turn to the internet to make ranty videos about the subject. Some might even turn to drink. This is going to be 5 things you should never say to your designer. So yes, welcome back. Before I get started, if you like this video or you end up liking it, you haven't seen it yet, but if you do end up liking it, don't forget to like. And if you dislike it, because we don't want people to come here thinking that it's something that it's not, i.e. good. Also, if you get to the end of the video, why not consider subscribing, because it's really nice when you get the subscription email. I've had it 21 times now. Although it doesn't tell you who subscribes all the time. But I have had 9 subscribers that I can see who they are. I'm going to put them in the credits. I say a big thank you to my subscribers. So if you want to get in the credits, I know it's exciting stuff. The credits of some unknown person's vlog. But, we've got to try what I can to get more people to subscribe. Anyway, onto the video. 5 things you should never say to your designer. And in this video I'm talking about UI designers, graphic designers, the people that play around with Photoshop, InDesign and Sketch. I'm going to try and keep this short. I'm limiting myself to less than a minute for each thing, so hopefully I won't spend years editing. I'm going to cover one thing off at the beginning. This video assumes that you've got a good designer, somebody that knows what they're doing, a professional. You might be in a position where you've got a junior in and they're just not quite up to snuff. That's a bad situation sometimes. People have got to learn somewhere, but if you've underpaid basically for a designer on your project, you might be in trouble. And this video is going to be particularly useful if you're in a position of being responsible for giving feedback to a designer. You might be a project manager or a product manager, an account manager. You might be the product owner. You might be the owner of the business. Maybe you're married to a designer and you made the mistake of letting them help you out with your work's newsletter after they saw that you'd already done a perfectly adequate one in PowerPoint, and they offered to get it up to the dizzying level of not bad. All you have to do is waste 4 hours of your life letting them convert it into an InDesign file and then arguing about colours and fonts, for example. Let's get going. This video is getting long already. I haven't even started. Thing number 1 that you should never say to your designer. Could you just change the header background to blue? I want you to change the body font to Papyrus. Replace that stock photo with this one that I found on Google. Right, I need to be more specific here. This isn't about the individual changes that I just mentioned. It's more about the act of telling somebody to change something. Telling a designer to change something. Sometimes things do need to be changed, sure, that's fine. Sometimes a designer can make a legitimate mistake and it needs to be rectified. But in this specific scenario, I'm talking about when you're in a position to pull rank on a designer and you tell them to change something because in your opinion it would look better another way. Design is subjective, and there is the small matter of the designer being the professional in this scenario, and the change that your opinion says would make things better might actually make things worse. The other thing to consider, and this is the more important one, is that if you just tell your designer to make a change that you want without at least opening it up to some sort of discussion, you're very likely to demotivate that designer. If you start treating them, or if they start to feel like a glorified Mac operator, they're going to stop really caring about your project. They won't be as engaged, they won't work as hard, and in the long run you're more likely to get a worse overall result. Thing 2 that you should never say to your designer. The client got back to me and they want you to change X to Y. Again, let's be specific here. In this scenario, you're the project manager, the product manager, or the account manager, and you haven't actually spoken to the client. You're using that in-betweener status to tell the designer that you have actually spoken to the client and they want something, but in fact it's you that wants that change made before you send the design over to the client. I'm fairly sure that over 50% of designers watching this will have experienced this scenario, and it's a difficult one because you can't actually prove that it's happening, and it might be paranoia. You might be paranoid. To be fair, the PM might have got in touch with the client and received feedback on your design within 10 minutes of you sending it to them. A lot of designers are just like developers. They like changes to be handled via the board or the changelog, or at least via an email. A message over Slack asking them to quickly change something that the PM obviously wants changed, it's probably going to cause you more trouble than it's worth in the long run. And that leads me on to thing number 3. Could you quickly? Don't say could you quickly to a designer. Some designers, not all designers, and I'm not saying me, but some designers, if you ask them to do something quickly, they automatically add 50% on to how long it's going to take them to do it. We've all had those scenarios when you've been working really hard on something for a number of days straight, and then you move on to another thing, and PM pops up while you're in the middle of doing another design, and they're just like, oh, could you quickly take those mobile designs that you did for me yesterday and put them in a desktop layout? And this is often followed up with I've told the client that you just knock it together and we'll send it over this afternoon. Is that alright, or do you need till tomorrow morning? Here's a pro tip. If you ever are in this situation and you need to get a change made quickly to an existing design, your best strategy is just to be really nice to the designer all the time. And then when it comes to that situation, you ask them how long it would take, and then you throw in at the end a little bit, they'd really love it if I got it done a bit quicker. We're really under pressure. I'll buy you a beer. Bribery always works. Trying to trick them into thinking it's a quick job by saying, can you quickly? That rarely works. Thing 4, could you design a website for me for my secret brand using lorem ipsum? You've got complete freedom. This kind of freedom, as you call it, always makes a designer's heart sink, because it just points out to the designer that you're not really prepared for the design. You don't really know what you want, and what you're going to do is get them to give you a rough first draft, and then you're going to be spending days, weeks making changes to that and iteratively changing it until it magically turns into something that they love. It never turns into something that the client loves, or at least anything that resembles what the designer first did. To do a good job, a designer needs to know what they're designing for. Without knowing who your target users are, what your ideas for the brand are, and what the content is that you want to give to your target users, a designer's not going to be able to understand what it is this tool that they're designing needs to do. Thing number 5, could you make it pop? This is a bit of a cliche, it's always talked about. And weirdly, it's actually something that's been said to me on multiple occasions. And if you've ever said that to a designer, I'm sorry, but you've probably had some strong words said about you behind your back. When you're giving a designer feedback, try to be very clear about what it is that you think needs to be changed, what things they could do to improve something, and start a discussion with them where you ask them what they think they could do to improve something. A back and forth conversation is always a lot more desirable for a designer than being told to do something, especially when they're told to do something that is ambiguous, like make something pop. The make it pop thing is up there with one of the most annoying things you can say to a designer. Almost as bad as make the logo bigger. It's a weird one, that is. It's always said by business owners. Business owners like to see their logo bigger. For some reason they want it to be bigger. Almost as if they're trying to make up for something. Lack of content on the page, of course. Anyway, those are my 5 things. I've tried to keep this video shorter. I hope it's short. I tried to keep the other one shorter, and the shortest one's 7 minutes, and that's quite long. Key things to take away from this video. Everybody's got an opinion, especially on things like colours and fonts. But if you or your company have hired a professional designer, a good professional designer, chances are they're probably going to know what's best for the design. If you make changes based on your gut instinct, you're likely to make things worse. A good professional designer usually has a lot of experience. They make certain decisions for certain reasons. And when you're building a product, subjectivity should be cut out of things. If you want to make a design better, you should be looking at things like conversion rate optimization, taking a good design and tweaking it to make it perfect. A/B testing and user testing are great times to experiment with different tweaks. If you get too hung up on them during the design phase, you're probably wasting your time, to be honest. Another important thing to consider is if you get a UI designer involved at the wrong time during a project, no matter how good they are, it's always going to be an uphill battle. If you don't have the content, if you haven't thought about the user flows throughout your product, if you don't have wireframes, you're essentially going to be paying the UI designer to work through that. UI designers are rarely experts in that sort of stuff, and even though they will muddle through it, it's probably going to end up costing you more in the long run. Hope you got this far into the video. If you did, consider liking the video or subscribing. If you're a designer and I haven't mentioned your pet peeve, put it in the comments. It'd be cool to hear your ranting. You can think of it as a therapy session where you can read through people's pet peeves and like the ones that you identify with. That would be an interesting experiment. Do it. Right, I'm going to go. Thank you for watching. Have a good week, and I'll see you all next week. Bye!